just gonna be a little playful today with this here bun atop her head. I haven't done this for years. I don't know if this is even cool anymore. So in case a little bit pops out on the side or it starts falling apart and I have to change my hair or something, just roll with it. Just roll with it. Today, I thought I would talk about 6 hard truths that I personally learned about writing and publishing my own book. I was going to say your own book. So, I mean, this applies to you too, but it's like things that I learned firsthand that I'm passing on to you as knowledge, as content, as a mixture between the two. So take it how you want. I try to be really specific with some of these reasons that I put together that are very niche and very particular and that maybe other people haven't commented on. So I hope that that you get something out of this video is what I'm trying to say. God. Part of the reason that I wanted to make a video about this too is because I want to help not only manage expectations, but also help combat the more romanticized version of writing and publishing your book. Because you read the books, you see the movies, you hear about all these great stories about how the big ones made it and stuff like that, but it's like there's so many of us regular Joes out there taking the long path that I want to not only acknowledge that, but talk about some of the, just as the title implies, harder truths around what it takes and the learning curves around writing and publishing your own book. So without further ado, let's get into this. Hey there, my name is Lauren and I am a book strategist as well as a traditionally published author. I have experience publishing Amazon and Wall Street Journal best-selling books for an Inc. 5000 company, and now I offer commentary, advice, insight, and education on the publishing space specifically for aspiring authors such as yourself. Number one, no one is going to care about your book more than you. No one's going to care about your book more than you. I promise you. I promise you. I don't feel like I was really starting to be taken seriously as a writer / aspiring author until I had my publishing contract in hand, until I signed it. Then everyone was like, oh, you're getting published. And it's like, yeah, that was the plan. You are going to be your book's first and only advocate. True, like to your core advocate, assuming that you want to write a book that badly. My advice for this, if you're in the baby stages, you have an idea that's maybe percolating in the back of your head, don't tell anyone about it until it's tangible, because once it's on paper in the truest form, the form that is most truest to you and what you really have to say, it's going to be very easy for that to be molded by other people's expectations or opinions or both. And I'm just going to add this in here too, just for those of you who are in the middle of writing your book. Yes, you are writing the book for yourself, but keep in mind, it's being published for your readers. If you haven't, take a minute, step back, and seriously think about this. People are going to read what you have to say, assuming you go through the whole process and you see it through to the end of, publishing your book. There always needs to be something in it for the reader. If you're writing a memoir, like me, my memoir is a coming-of-age story about my experience living and working in Yellowstone National Park as a housekeeper. That's my story. But I wrote it knowing that other people are going to read it and there needs to be some degree of relatability or truth holding or something in it for them. With that being said, just as a little note from your friend Lauren, make sure that there is always a point with whatever it is that you write, whatever the story is, whatever the scene is, whatever the dialogue is, for the love of God. Make sure there's a point. Otherwise, it's going to be fluffy and no one's going to be interested in it. But point being, no one's going to care about your book more than you. So just do what you got to do, however you got to do it, get it on paper, and then you can tell people about it. At least that worked for me personally. Number 2, hard pill. You will most likely not make a splash with your first book, and I'm going to tell you why. Your book is mostly going to be about 2 things. It's going to be about proving that you are a writer, proving yourself as a writer, and getting your foot in the door. You got to start somewhere, even if it's not where you want to be. For me, I got published through a small press, and I'm perfectly happy with that. For other people, they want to go for the gold, go for the big New York City publishing house, but sometimes maybe they spend years going after that, trying to get an agent, hundreds of submissions, and it's just not going anywhere. Feel free to bring down the bar a few steps. Start with a small publisher. Oftentimes, they don't require that you have an agent. They accept unsolicited submissions and manuscripts. Start small, start somewhere, get your foot in the door, and then build your way up. It's easier to build. It is always easier to build onto what you have. Just know that it's a starting point. It's not the end-all, be-all moment of truth. The fate of the world depends on this book and how it's published. Just start somewhere. You can always build your way up. Number 3, people will judge your book by its cover. That is why we have cover artists, my friend. There is absolutely a purpose to cover art. I judge a book by its cover. Everyone judges a book by its cover. It's okay. If you're gonna have a cover, which is true of pretty much every book, it needs to be a good one. Do not pick your neighbor, your godson, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, your daughter who is in graphic design or art school. Don't pick them to design your cover unless they are a professional, they have a strong portfolio, they know what the heck they're doing. Seriously, invest the extra money, get a good book cover. It is the first thing, whether in person or online, that people are going to see. Get a good book cover. I want you to tattoo this on your arm or write it in Sharpie somewhere. Get a good book cover. When it comes to book designs, it's not necessarily about you. And I say that because there are standards and trends that need to be considered that are specific to your genre. I want you to compare the cover of a nonfiction book to a fiction book, and you're going to see some big differences. There are a lot of commonalities between all these nonfiction books or the self-help books or the cookbooks versus like a romance book or a thriller book or a sci-fi book. There are different standards and trends in cover design that need to be considered, which is why I say that you really need to have a good book cover. In fact, I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to pop it up on the screen right here. This is an example of different romance covers. They all look very similar. You see the theme. There are all these bright, strong, vivid colors versus like a nonfiction group of books or something. A lot of it is going to be very practical. It's going to be very real world images, very practical text. So that's part of the reason why I say that the book cover is not necessarily around what you want and what you like best. That's important. You want to like your own cover. I'm not saying to like ignore that. Like don't go against your intuition or anything, but just have an open mind with what people might recommend to you or what people say, oh, you know, this is going to be a real eye popper for you for this reason. Balance the advice and the insight you're going to get from professional graphic artists and all that stuff with what it is that resonates with you. You want it to be a happy medium like anything. If you are publishing traditionally, there are going to be in-house designers to begin with. So if you have a traditional publishing deal, whether it's with a small press, a medium-sized press, or a big press, they're going to have someone most likely in-house that will be able to design your cover for you for free. That's kind of the appeal of traditional publishing, is that you don't have to pay for anything. If you do, it's a scam. Don't do it. Do your research. But generally speaking, they're going to have an in-house graphic artist or a design team or something like that. If you're hybrid or you're indie, definitely make sure you have a good book cover, because this is something that you're going to have to most likely outsource. If you're with the hybrid press, they're probably not going to have someone in design. They might have referrals, they might know people that they'll direct you to, but don't trust that they're going to have someone in-house. Be prepared to get to invest in an external service or someone or a graphic designer or something. Number 4, you're going to have to know how to self-promote. I'm sorry, it's just the name of the game. I would say that marketing in general, especially self-promotion, is a very big weakness with authors. And I know this firsthand because I have helped to market a lot of different books, fiction and nonfiction, with indie authors, with hybrid authors, even with myself. When I was traditionally published with a small press, I had to know how to self-promote. It's a good muscle that is worth exercising, even outside of books. If you have a business, if you have an online service, you got to know how to self-promote that. If you want sales, if you want clients, whatever it is, whatever your goals are, it's just a good skill all around to have. As uncomfortable as it is, authors, we don't always know how to talk about ourselves. We don't always like the spotlight. We don't always like the attention. We feel like we're taking up space unnecessarily, and it's okay to feel like that. It really is. But at least be willing to lean into that uncomfortableness. Keep an open mind, and don't deny someone who's excited to learn more about your book the opportunity to learn more about your book. Imagine it like this, okay? It's your birthday, let's say, for example, and someone surprises you with a gift. Your neighbor, your friend, your colleague, your significant other, whatever. They surprise you with a gift, and you're like, oh, gosh, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Oh, man, oh, you really shouldn't have done that for me. It's like, if I'm giving you the gift, I'm gonna think, well, I was pretty excited to give this to you, and now I'm kind of not. You're making me feel a little bit bummed out. Think of it like that, like with your book. The other thing I'll add too, a little bit of harsh advice, is that if you can't even vouch for your own book, why should I consider it? Why should I buy it if you're not even going to be excited about it? Because that's a big part of it too. If you're happy and enthusiastic about, look at this thing that I made, it's brand spanking new, it's out in the world. I poured years of energy and time and effort that I maybe had or didn't have or barely had into making this thing. It's out in the world, it's so exciting. Let me tell you all about it. Like, that's really going to hype me up. I'm going to get real excited, be like, hot dog, tell me where that book is posted. Is it on Amazon? Is it on Bookshop? Is it on Barnes & Noble? Like, where can I get that? That sounds pretty cool. I want to buy it. Think of it like sharing your excitement with someone versus promoting your book to someone, if that kind of helps you frame it. Number 5, this is a quote from Neil Gaiman. If you only write when you're inspired, you may be a fairly decent poet, but you'll never be a novelist because you're going to have to make your word count today, and those words aren't going to wait for you whether you're inspired or not. Point being, be consistent. Consistency is so the name of the game. You gotta show up and do the work. I'm not gonna pull that Kim Kardashian quote, A, because it's outdated, and B, because it gives everyone an icky feeling, but you really do have to show up and do the work. I'm sorry. Think about, when do you do your best work? For some people, it's in the evening. Some people, it's 2 in the morning. Other people, it's 7 a.m. Some people, it's 3 in the afternoon. For me, I learned that I did my best focused work early in the morning when it was still dark out and everyone was still asleep. That was my little pocket of time, an hour or two maybe, where I felt like I could really get stuff done without being bothered, and I could kind of get myself into a flow state. Glennon Doyle Melton wrote in her closet before her kids woke up in the morning, and that was what she did. Maya Angelou would rent out, I don't know about this, I mean, it would be more of an investment, but Maya Angelou would rent out a hotel room for multiple days at a time, drinking glasses of sherry with the shades drawn and writing her books. That's what everyone has their thing. From conception until its publication, it's gonna be a part-time job. I'm gonna paraphrase this quote from Stephen King from his book On Writing, which is amazing. I really liked it. It's like part memoir, part guide. Your muse needs to be able to depend on your office hours. If you want to think of your creativity as a muse, whatever you choose, whatever your goal is, whatever your best practices are for yourself, stick with it. And if it doesn't work, change it up until it works, and then stick with it. And number 6, this one I never, ever, ever hear talked about. But it is that there will be an inevitable shift from the art, the craft of writing, to the business of publishing. Writing a book is one thing, publishing it is kind of another. And there's this like transition that happens, right? Because goal 1, write the book. Goal 2, publish the book. But in between, there's this little space where you're going to kind of have to flip-flop your gears a little bit and think very strategically around how you're going to promote your book, what kind of publishing route you want to take, what kind of investment are you going to make into the production and or the marketing of your book. You got to kind of put your business hat on. You're both an artist and a business person. Whether you want to keep writing books or you want to write articles, get featured in magazines, whatever it is, you're gonna have to think about it like it's your business. It really is. When you start writing, when you publish a book, you become an author. And your book, your authorship, that's gonna be a part of your brand. That's the stuff that you're talking about. It's the stuff that you're promoting. It's the stuff that you're talking about and getting other people excited about. You have to think about it like what it is, which is books are a business. That can be a hard pill for some people to swallow. There's money that's involved. There's strategy that's involved. There are hard conversations that are involved. There's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of recalibrating expectations. And I'm going to combat that phrase that is, I'm the talent. I'm only supposed to write. I would say that used to be true, however many decades ago, certainly centuries ago, in the 19th century, when novelists had wives to take care of the house and the children and the cooking. But, this is the 2020s, and we have student debt and bills and large gas bills to pay. Like, it's just how life is. It's life is a pendulum. It's going to swing one way, and then who knows, however many years later, it's going to swing the other way. It's just going to ebb and flow, and currently, we're in the process of books where you gotta wear both hats, which is especially true if you are an indie author, if you want to self-publish, and even if you're a hybrid author. You're gonna have to know how to do both. Like I said, publishers aren't gonna roll out the red carpet for you most likely, especially if you're new to the game. You're gonna have to know how to do a lot of this stuff yourself. You're gonna have to know how to talk about your book and promote it, and maybe throw a little bit of money at marketing. Again, a lot of this is dependent on what your goals are, but you're gonna have to practice at least wearing both hats. It's just the kind of dynamic that we're in with books right now. I'm really glad you're watching this video because this is stuff that I don't feel like many people, especially people in the industry, they just don't talk about it. This stuff is not known until it's known, which sounds a little bit silly, but it's like, you know it once you experience it. And I'm trying to give you fair warning by letting you know that some of these items may be true for you. Maybe some of them, maybe all of them, maybe none of them, I don't know. But again, I would just rather you find out all this stuff now rather than later. So with that all being said, I do have some final thoughts to share. As early on as you can, identify your goals. What does success look like to you personally? Not the shoulds, not the, oh, I should really focus on, oh, I should really go for that. Oh, they probably want me to do. No. Sit in a room by yourself, draw the curtains, sit by a candle, whatever you got to do, and think about what is it that you really want out of this thing? What do you want out of the experience of writing and publishing a book? And what do you want, what kind of doors or opportunities do you want your book to open, if any? If your goal is just to write a book and call it a day, great, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. If your goal is to live out the more romanticized version of publishing, where you write the book, you get the deal, you get the massive advance or royalties or whatever, which I did make a video on that, by the way, if you want to check it out. Whatever your version of success is, really consider it and consider it your own fully. It's not anyone else's book. It's not your parents' book. It's not your neighbor's book. It's not your colleague's book. It's your book, and you can do whatever you want or whatever you don't want with it. So if you don't know what to do next, I'm going to recommend a couple pieces of reading for you. The first one being Scratch, Writer's Money and the Art of Making a Living by Manuela Martin. Apologies if I mispronounced her first name. And the other one being On Writing by Stephen King. I know a lot of people have read it. Some people like it, some people don't. If you haven't read it before, consider giving it a read. It's like part memoir, part guide. And what I like about his is that a lot of it is very like technical. Like, here's how to write your query letter. Here's what to know about, agents. So I like the practicality of his book. And then with Scratch, it's basically a compilation of essays written by a bunch of different authors of varying degrees of success and notoriety that offer their take on what it's really like living their life as a writer. Couple chapters talk about the money of writing, of like around the books and stuff, and like how authors make their money, which is helpful because no one talks about that. And also, write out your goals. Seriously, read those books and think about your goals. Those are the two pieces of advice of next steps that I have for you. If you got something out of this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and comment below what piece of advice resonated with you the most. And or if you are a writer or have published a book before, what piece of advice would you give to new aspiring authors or people who are wanting to write a book? I'd be very curious to read them and hear about them myself. I also have a Substack article about this too, where I post a lot of different content on the business of books, things around publishing. You could check it out at laurenerickson.substack.com. I'm also heavily active on Instagram. My handle is @LaurenErickson, but the O in my last name is a 0 because someone took the regular one. And feel free to email me any other topics you want me to talk about, feedback, comments, questions, all that jazz at lauren@laurenericksonwrites.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for clicking on this video. Bye.